Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar. My name is Vic, and I'm the Marketing Director at Infovity. And no, Infovity is an Oracle Platinum Partner, and we have over 10 Cloud Excellence Expertise certifications, which means we are all things cloud and experts. And we've also got a big team of leadership that came from Oracle. So we are the leaders and the experts in this space. Our focus is on ERP, EPM, obviously PBCS, HCM, EBS, integration services, custom app dev, and managed services, and a ton of other things. Today, we're going to highlight and demonstrate our pre-built PBCS solution for banking, presented by Knappen. And just a little housekeeping before we get started. You're all currently on mute, so if you have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and type them into the question box in the Zoom control panel, and I'll take note of these during the presentation, and we'll address them at the end of the Q&A session. Knappen is a subject matter expert on all things EPM and ERP, and has an extensive background in FinServ and banking solutions. And he's been one of the people leading the charge at Infovity to create these industry-focused pre-built solutions that are gonna help you save a lot of time and money. And these solutions have not only fast-tracked PBS implementations who are first-timers, but for those whose initial implementation with other partners maybe didn't go so smoothly. So either way, we've got you covered with these pre-built solutions. And then one more item before I hand it off is Infovity is a sponsor at this year's, the first Oracle Modern Business Experience in Las Vegas. It's happening March 19th through the 21st. So we'll be out there in the finance section in the dusk. This event combines Oracle providers focused on finance, HCM, and supply chain management, and we just happen to provide services and solutions across all three of those. And we'll share information about this event with you at the end, and when we send you the recording. That way you can attend either our theater presentation. Our customer, Bright Industries, is going to share their ERP cloud success story, which actually has a PBCS component. And you also probably want to go to our kickoff cocktail party at Libertine Social. It's going to be a great time. So now, without further ado, I will hand it over to Knappen. Take it away, Knappen.
Oh, thank you, Kimmel. Great introduction. Appreciate that. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking time to join the webinar today. And as Camille mentioned, we are going to focus on how we can address some of the planning and budgeting related challenge in banking industry. And we're going to see the live demonstration of the software, but before that, we will just lay out the agenda and go through a small PowerPoint and get right into the live demonstration of the software. And in terms of agenda, we are going to talk about what are some of the new realities in banking and financial services industry in particular. And then we will talk about how Oracle Planning Budgeting Cloud Service coupled with Infovity's pre-built content can help you meet the new realities in the banking industry today. And then we will obviously look at some of our experience working with a number of institutions, and then we will see the live demonstration of the software. Now, what is some of the new reality in an ever-changing business environment? And this is one of the survey conducted by Global Financial Times. And you can see here, nearly 80% of the executives coming from the financial institutions mention meeting the ever-changing customer demand is a very challenging task in the bank, especially in the retail side of the bank. And you can also see, in this economic volatility, being agile and make significant changes to the business drivers and lead the business is going to be very, very key. And every 7 in 10 people, 10 executives are highlighting that as a major fact. And when we talk about these, obviously the forward-looking planning becomes much more important, and that is actually shared by one in every 5 interviewers out of 10. And all of that basically leads the executives now to think about having solutions, IT infrastructure, which is more of a cloud-based infrastructure. And that shift is happening in the industry, and that is we are seeing across the board. And out of 10, 9 executives have plans to move their infrastructure to a cloud platform. And we see that across human capital management. We see that across procurement, financials, the ERP function, and we see that across the planning, budgeting, financial consolidation, and financial reporting. And one of the key things for financial institution today is, the ability to have a centralized system rather than a distributed Excel spreadsheet is going to be very key to meet the changing customer demand. And that's what we are addressing in partnering with Oracle and using Oracle Planning, Budgeting, Cloud Solution. We are bringing the industry-specific best practices, especially for the financial institutions. So let's talk about that. And so if you look at this here, in terms of your core banking platform, I'm sure many of you might be running Jack Henry, Fiserv, and you may have your core banking platforms in that, and then you might be using Jack Henry and Fiserv financials as well. When you begin your annual budgeting or quarterly forecasting cycle, typically you are bringing information from all these places. You are running reports and then bringing that into Excel workbook, hundreds of Excel tabs in one workbook, and then filling in all that information. And then what are you doing? You're distributing that to your 30, 40 cost center managers to get all their information, and then they send it back to you. You reconsolidate everything, and all of that takes easily 6 to 8 weeks time. And then when you go through multiple iterations, it takes much more longer time. And being agile in this environment is going to be extremely hard, given the fact you are spending a lot of time in collecting the data and getting the data correct. Checking your formulas, making sure the information is accurate and all that, right? And that is what we are trying to replace with the planning, budgeting cloud system. So the planning, budgeting cloud system is essentially nothing but the Hyperion suite of application. If you recollect, Hyperion was acquired by Oracle back in 2008. And since then, Hyperion suite of applications is very strategic to Oracle. And that is what is made available as a cloud platform back in 2014. So planning, budgeting cloud service is a cloud-based centralized repository that can bring information from Jack Henry, Fiserv, third-party security platform, from your HR platform. All of that information can be automatically brought over. And that is what we are doing in planning, budgeting cloud service. And what we have done is, based on our prior implementation experience with a number of financial institutions, we have created models pertaining to loans, CDs, deposits, securities. And so, the information can flow in automatically, and the balances and the interest income and the interest expense will get projected based on set of drivers, right? And the system is not only a planning, budgeting tool, but it also gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of reporting, such as your net interest margin, yield. And today, you might have a separate set of Excel workbook where you're doing all these reporting month after month, right? Month after month, spending time to get the board reporting ready. And you can do all of that automatically using the planning, budgeting system. Right? It gives you the visibility to the actual versus budget. And think about your existing relationships in terms of your loans, CDs, and deposits. And let's say you begin your budget cycle just today, you should be able to automatically bring in the prior month close and automatically project without any manual intervention for your existing loans, CDs, deposits, and securities on day one, you should be able to project that. And then on top of that, you can set up your goals for your branch in terms of the future projection. And then you add up both of them, you should be able to have your P&L and balance sheet. And that is what we are accomplishing through the planning budgeting solution. And we are seeing customers cutting down the budgeting cycle time from 70 to 80% in terms of their ability to shrink the time to prepare the budget, and then come up with what-if scenarios and modeling, and be able to provide alternatives. And then, you take your budget for your board approval, it is approved, nobody can change it, and then you can do your monthly forecasting or quarterly forecasting. That's essentially what we are doing by eliminating all your needs to go and collect the data. Right? Save the time and ensure that the information that you are bringing is accurate enough, and you have the confidence in the numbers that you are presenting to your board. And that is what we are accomplishing, reducing the cost, reducing the time, improving the accuracy, which is essentially key. And going back to the point, this is what really you need to be more and more agile and meet your customer demand, right? Say, for example, you're going to have a new branch location starting in a certain location in the country, and what is the cost associated with the branch, right? What is the capital cost associated with the branch, setting up the branch, and what is the loan volume you are projecting from that branch? What if the scenarios, what if I start the branch, if I don't start the branch? All these type of scenarios you should be able to quickly, analyze and then present the budget and the forecast to your board. And that's exactly what we are doing here. Right? And we will see that in the demo. And in terms of, our prior experience working with a number of customers, as Camille mentioned, we have done over 100 cloud implementations across human capital management, ERP, and EPM. And obviously today our focus is on planning, budgeting, consolidation, and reporting. And Farmers and Merchant Bank is a financial institution in Los Angeles. They run Jack Henry, and they've been using the solution for the last 3.5 years to prepare the annual budget and then do quarterly forecasting and then do month-end reporting. They're very, very successful automated process from Jack Henry to bring in all this information, and they do it at each loan level, each deposit, each security level, right? And then you see here, there's another institution, Mechanics Bank here in Walnut Creek, California, and they actually run Fiserv. And in fact, actually, they retained the Fiserv core banking platform, and then they migrated financials, the Fiserv financials to Oracle ERP financials, and then the Excel-based planning process to planning budgeting system that we are talking about here. Right? And then there is another financial institution in Portland, Oregon, First Tech Credit Union, and they use the entire Oracle Cloud Financials and the planning budgeting system to perform the planning and then the financial processes. So very, very successful, and a significant saving of time and money, and more than that, being able to adjust and make the plan more dynamic. That's very, very key, right? So with that, we will go into the demonstration, and I'm going to divide this demonstration into 5 sections, right? And we're going to see how you can use this tool to perform your interest income planning, right? Well, from your loans and securities, how you can do your interest expense planning from your CDs and deposits. And not only that, being able to project the balances and then look at the balances, and then look at different combinations, actual to actual, scheduled to actual, all these different types of combinations, and automatically generate the key financial metrics such as your yield on loan, return on assets, and all these type of key metrics. So we're going to talk about all of that in the demo, and I will cover the non-interest expense, especially your salary planning, and then the department branch expenses at the vendor level. All of that will automatically flow into your P&L and balance sheet and the reporting piece. Right? So with that, let's go into the demonstration. I'm going to switch from PowerPoint to a web browser. All right, so we're going to talk about this interest income planning. And before we do that, I do want to let you know that you can access this application either from your mobile device or from your laptop through a browser, or you can access this from an Excel spreadsheet as well. What you see here is, there is this plugin called the Smart View that allows you to connect to the centralized repository, and it will allow you to reduce, let's say you got like 100 tabs, you can cut down that 100 tabs to one single tab and have this analysis done, as well as submit your budget through Excel. So you can work with Excel or browser, and you're still working with the centralized repository, which allows you to automatically consolidate the financial information, right? So with that, let's talk about the interest income planning. As you see here, we call this as a springboard. Right, the springboard is something you can personalize, and here is one way of presenting this information to your budget owners, right? But this is not the only way. You can organize it in a fashion that is more meaningful to you. But here you are looking at loans, securities, CDs, deposits, department managers, workforce. All of that will automatically flow into your financial statement. Right? As I was mentioning earlier, you have the ability not only to plan and forecast, but also do a lot of reporting. So you can set up executive dashboards as well using this tool. And before I show you the interest income, briefly let me show you the key dashboards that you can set up using the system. So the point here is, it is just not your planning budgeting tool, but it is also your dashboard and reporting tool. So you can go ahead and drill down, and here you are looking at your net interest margin and yield and all these type of key metrics. And similarly, you can get to your essentially the key metrics dashboard in terms of loans, CDs, deposits. Here you are looking at different loan types. What does your volume look like? What does your balance look like across these different loan types? And I could just drill down on my quarter. The system is going to actually allow you to drill down and look at the monthly level of expense of balances in terms of loans, securities, and CDs, and all of that, right? So this is a very powerful tool, because you're going to bring in your actuals from all these places automatically, and that is one of the biggest challenges, right? It takes about 1 week to 10 days to get all these data from all these different places, merge them all together easily, and then you need to verify, validate, and all of that. You're going to save all of that time when you bring this information to the solution. Right? So with that, let's go back to the springboard, and we will talk about more reporting towards the end. And in terms of interest income, as I was mentioning, you have the ability to bring in either at the instrument level or at the instrument type level, right? So you may have your commercial loan, you may have your student loan, you may have your home loan, and you could actually bring in at each of the instrument, or you can bring in at those type levels, you can bring in the balances, right? You're going to start your budget, say, 2nd of March, or say 10th of March, you could bring in all your balances as of 28th February, and then the system should automatically project for your existing instruments. So here's an example of, these are all the various loans, and as of that particular period and fiscal year, what does your GL balance look like, right? And what is your interest rate? And these are all different set of drivers, right? You could use your prepayment speed, you could use your interest rate, fixed interest rate, variable interest rate, and also you can define things like floor and ceiling, and have the system automatically pick up the interest rate for the future. So all of that you can do, but the key thing here is all these loan related attributes you can bring over, and as a branch manager you can look at, hey, as of today, what are my different performing loans, and what is the balance associated with that, and from that balance, here maturity date, that is another biggest driver. And from that balance, what is my, ending balance, future ending balance going to look like? What is my interest income is going to look like from these existing instruments? And say, for example, this top one, if you notice this first loan, this loan is supposed to mature in December, and you will now see the projection all the way up to December, and then it will drop to zero since the loan matures in December, it will drop to zero in December, right? And then the interest income as well. So you don't have to put this in Excel spreadsheet and then calculate these balances, run a report and bring all of that. That is available to you immediately. Right? And let's say you need to change something, right? Say, for example, you need to change certain attributes here. I'm going to take an example of changing this loan. For some reason, somebody is prepaying and you know that this loan will close on 28th June. I could update that, save it. The system recomputes your balances and the interest income for the entire repository, and then you will see that the loan balance is in fact actually projected based on the revised maturity date on that particular loan. So if you see here, let me just scroll over. So you could see that the balance drops to zero in June and the interest income. So what I am showing you here is for the existing instruments, without any effort, you should be able to bring in the balance day one when you start your budget cycle, right? So, and the effect of that can be easily reviewed when you go to your loan budget across all these different types of loan. What does my balance look like for the next 2 years or next 3 years? Or the next year, depending on your budget frequency, and what is my interest income look like on top of that? Right? So that will cover for your existing performing loans, right? And what about some of the new loans that your branch managers are going to produce? And you can define your goals across your different branches, right? These are the different loan regions. I could actually do a top-down plan where I can say each loan region is supposed to bring this many number of loans or this much volume of loans. And then the system will allocate that to your different loan types, right? Different loan types. And so you can see there are certain rates that the system is going to use, and then it is going to basically derive your loan balance across all these different loan types. So now what is your budget in terms of loan? Your performing loan balance plus your goal balance, right? That's your total budget for your next fiscal year, and that is what we are doing by defining a model that is calculating the interest income and the balance for the existing instruments bottom up, and then for the goal top down, and then we combine these two. So this, for example, this loan budget can be completed in about 3 to 4 business days, because you can send it to all the branch managers can look at the goals and make adjustments and then submit that. And when they submit it, see here, there is a scenario called budget, and so you can see that this information can be automatically rolled up, and at the bank level, across all the branch, across all the entities. That's what this cost center refers to, right? And so that gets automatically aggregated. Now that's about the interest income from loan, and you can also do it at the loan type level. So I'm just giving you different flavors, right? So if you choose to do it at loan type level, some of the instrument level planning I showed you is not applicable, right? So you can turn on, turn off, depending on how much level of detail you want to plan. And here is an example of all these different types of loans. And so here is your GL balance and what is the weighted average interest rate. These are set of drivers that you can set up, and then have the how much of the loan percentage is going to be maturing. All of that you can basically set up, and then have the interest income projection at the loan type level. So you basically get to decide in terms of, sometimes, in terms of accuracy, when you go to the instrument level, your accuracy is going to be very high. You can predict and project your budget when you do it at the instrument level. And so it's a kind of a trade-off in terms of, depending on number of loans that you have. Maybe, if you're doing auto loan, your number of loans are going to be very high, but each of them is going to be somewhere between 25 to 75K. And in that scenario, you might consider loan type planning. And let's say you have, business loans and home loans. Each of them is $1 million to $10 million, and you have the number of loans a lot lesser, and you want to be more accurate, you could go to the instrument level. Right? The planning budgeting system supports both of them, and that's how you can simplify your interest income planning from a loan perspective and also from a security point of view, right? You could actually bring in information at the security, each of these securities level, and the securities that are available for sale and hold to maturity. All of that can be brought over. It shows you the book value as of that close month, what's your maturity, and all of this information can be brought over automatically from your securities system and have that projected in terms of your next fiscal year. And one of the things in security is, a lot of times you will have several securities, maturing, and you're going to have funds in hand, and you need to have some sort of a reinvestment strategy. And your reinvestment strategy is obviously going to impact your P&L. And so you can define modeling. So here's an example of, reinvestment strategy where, where you can define how you want to take this particular security and then invest that fund across multiple different securities portfolio that you have, and the system is basically going to readjust the volume, the balances, and then project your interest income from securities, and that will actually go into your securities budget. Now, the good news here is, you see here, these are your balance sheet accounts, and obviously you're going to have your interest income accounts as well. And the securities and loan balance sheet will automatically flow into your overall balance sheet, and interest income from loans and securities will automatically flow into your P&L. And this is where you're going to save a lot of time, and no formula errors, no calculation errors, and no need to go back and look at multiple Excel spreadsheets, right? And that is essentially what is going to save a lot of your time. And that's about the interest income planning, right? And let's now talk about interest expense planning. See, the expense planning is essentially very similar to how you saw the interest income. You're going to be essentially bringing your CDs and deposits, and typically you're going to have thousands and thousands of deposits. So deposits can be done at the deposit type level, and so you will see the same idea in terms of bringing the input and then doing the projection at the deposit type level. And so you can look at by deposit type, we are doing the projection across all the different regions or branches, right? So that's one of the key things. You can bring in your chart of accounts segment into the planning budgeting model, and then you can also go one level further down. You can add additional dimensions and have your deposit goals, and that will flow into your deposit budget, right? So you can see how, so here is your interest expense, and then here is your balance going into the deposit. The same thing with CDs. You can have your 6-day CD to 6 months CDs to 12 month CDs, and you bring in your CD at the your input and your projections and define goal. So the concept is very simple. You look at your existing performing instruments and then automatically project the balance and the interest income, interest expense. On top of that, you define your goals, and you can have a variety of drivers, right? This is where we have seen different banks have different set of drivers, and we can incorporate that, and the system is going to project for you. right? So now the next thing we would like to talk about is your non-interest expense, which is very, very key. And I mean, without that, the P&L is not complete. And so let us talk about your non-interest expense. And some of you might be already thinking how secure this platform is. It's a very secure platform. Oracle allocates separate cloud pod just for you, which means your environment is not shared by any other banks. It is your environment, and 24/7 secured cloud platform. And the business users, when they get into the system, they will get to perform based on their job function, right? If they're responsible for only loans, and they would only see loans. If they're responsible for only specific branch expenses, then they would only see the staff in that branch. They would only see the expenses incurred in that branch. So it's a very highly secured environment. And I'm going to show you a series of templates that kind of will give you an idea in terms of how these can be collected, right? Imagine all these templates, if you have like 40 branches, all these 40 branch managers can go into this browser and then access this template. And when they go in, the system will automatically show their branch. And they input and submit the data. The system is going to consolidate in real time, right? Otherwise, in Excel world, it would take another 3 days to consolidate everything, and you're just getting ready to wrap up your budget. And there you say, you know what, I would like to cut down my expenses by 5%. Can you guys go and, regenerate these budget and come back? Well, it's going to take another 1 week to 10 days in Excel to accomplish that, right? Whereas here, in the planning budgeting system, you can just do it on the spot and have that automatically aggregated. And that is going to be the key for being agile, right? To be agile, you need to have this kind of a tool set that is, simplifying your data collection process and help you with making adjustments to how you're going to do your business, and then build your forecast. And then have the confidence that you're hitting your forecast in terms of your interest income, interest expense, and non-interest expense, right? So let's go take a look at that. And obviously, allocation, we talk about expenses, and here's an example of all these non-interest income, escrow fee, and bank charges, and all of that can be captured at the branch manager level. So you can see I have my cost center, and that's what is allowing me. So these are basically branches, right? These are all the branches, and allows you to, capture this information. So I could go ahead and say, $100,000 here, and that would get spread. And the way it spreads, you can control. I can just submit it. The system is going to aggregate that information automatically for you, and it is going to roll up across your time horizon, across your profit center, cost center, and entities, and get to a P&L automatically, right? I could just right click and then put my comments. I could look at, what was the change of data, who changed it, when it was changed. I can adjust the data, increase it, decrease it by a percentage. So all of that is available to you at the tip of your finger, which is going to improve your user adoption. And that will, once again, influence your accuracy in a positive way. Right? So that's about, interest income. And every template that I am showing you, you can access it from Excel and perform that. And here is a non-interest expense, right? And the beauty of this is you can actually bring in AP level information and then have that brought over into PBCS at the vendor spend level, right? And then a lot of these expenses, you might not engage a vendor. And that's why you see the non-interest expense. These are all department expenses, which are, you can budget, you can look at your actuals, and then you can budget for the future or budget for the forecast. And here's an example of, certain expenses where you would like to go by vendor. And typically the legal fee and the professional fee, all these you would like to budget at the vendor level. So this will give you the ability to look at what was the historical vendor spend and then budget for it in the future. And maybe, you might be engaging a brand new vendor, and you can have to be hired vendors to budget. And then, when you actually have the vendor on board, you can do your actual versus budget analysis at the vendor level. right? So that's again, some of the expenses in the cost at the corporate level, right? Your rent expenses, your utilities, all these expenses that you want to allocate. PBCS is a very powerful allocation engine. Right, you can set up your drivers and have that allocated. So I'm going to quickly go through here in the interest of time. So you can see you're allocating, for example, here based on the interest income from each of the branch. It could be based on your square footage. It could be based on your head count. A lot of these drivers. And by the way, you can also set up profitability report, profitability by customer, profitability by your instruments, and perform allocations and then drive profitability reports using the system. Right? The key thing here is you can review all of this as each of the cost center managers input the budget. You can review it at the entire bank level, and that will also automatically flow into your financial statement. Right? So with that, quickly, I'm going to show you the financial statement and the consolidation. There is no activity you really need to perform to consolidate, right? Because as the information gets submitted, the system roll up that information. All that you have to do is go to the financial statement, run some of these financial reports, and this is a repository where you can publish your financial statements, right? And these reports can be distributed, and you can define a distribution mechanism in terms of how you want this information to be given to your end users. Maybe you want to schedule an email process which will take this report and send it as an email attachment, right? So these are all different set of reports. And let's say, I would like to go and run the income statement trend report. I can download it to Excel, PDF, and all that. So just going to run one PDF report here. And so you can go ahead and see that income statement trend. It's picking up what month you want to run the report. Yeah, so this is right away bringing you the report. And so here's an example of your different, so this is more of a PDF file, and you can set up this report in a fashion. You can go to the GL account level, drill down, and go to the GL account level, right? So here's an example of that kind of a report, right? And then similarly, we could also define your ratio reports, which are very, very key. I mean, when you have all these data, why do you have to have Excel formulas, right? And then you need to go and spend a lot of time reviewing it, right? And I could do that all in PBCS. So here is an example of my total, bank. And I want to look at my key ratio report by bank. Just click on continue. And now I can see all my key metrics. And so here you go, your net interest margin, return on assets, all these are readily available, which means you will save a lot of time month after month validating, verifying. All that time will be saved when you use this comprehensive, centralized, pre-built planning solution. Right? So let's go back up again, and the last thing before we open this for Q&A is quickly I want to show you from Excel perspective how everything that you have seen is available to you in Excel spreadsheet. Right? So, the good news is you have automated process to bring information from Jack Henry and Fiserv and any other third-party system and into this repository, and then you can run your reports and analyze information. And this smart view is going to be very, very key. And you can simply right-click and then connect to the repository and build a report on the fly, right? So I'm just going to reuse this, the report here. Let's say you want to build income statement, right? And you don't have to wait for somebody to generate this report for you. The report I showed you over the browser, they are all, already formatted, ready to go reports. And when you do your month-end, quarter-end reporting, you don't have to go through formatting every single time. You can just come to this PDF. Even you can plug this report in a PowerPoint and then do a refresh, because this smart view refresh is available in PowerPoint, Word, and Excel, right? So you can easily do that. But then when you let's say you completed your annual budget, and you are in your month two was just closed, and you want to look at your actual versus budget, and you want to perform ad hoc analysis. right? And what you do today is you will run a report and then compare it with Excel and then plug some numbers in Excel and then look at, oh my goodness, you know what, the certain expense is very high, and then you would go and run a AP invoice report and then look at all the invoices. And then by the time you get to the root cause of the variance, you are already losing about 1, 2, 3 business days. Right? So you want to have this information at the tip of your finger, and that is what SmartView allows you to do. So for example, here you're looking at your income statement. I can just double click on it. It will drill down on my account hierarchy. So you can see I'm looking at my budget and actual at the year total level. I could just double click on my year total, and then that takes me to the a quarterly number, and then from there I could actually just double click. It will take me to the month level, and from here I continue to double click, and let's say non-interest expense, right? I can just double click on that, and there you go. You can see all your different categories of expenses, and I could double click on that. That takes you to the GL account, and from here I can right click and go to SmartView and then do a drill through to get to the invoice level detail, right? So I don't have the invoice level information, but you can actually right click and then go to the invoice level detail through this drill through, and therefore you can easily look at, here you have your vendor, so you can look at these fees at each of those vendor levels as well, right? And let's say, you want to look at your interest income, just continue to drill down, interest income, continue to drill down, continue to drill down. So here now you're looking at your loans. I can continue to drill down, and now you see at each of these instrument level, at the account balance level, you can see your entire P&L, right? So it just took me 5 minutes to go from the top level P&L to do analysis in terms of easily look at this data. And let's say I want to look at my professional fee, I could just, go planning ad hoc and then just say keep only, everything goes away. And now I can focus on how did we do on professional fee across budget versus actual, right? So I can easily copy this. So it's very flexible. You can do all the Excel function, right? Insert, cut cell, and now I can do a refresh. You can see side by side, how did you do in terms of actual versus budget. And so here is your bank hierarchy. You can define your financial institution in terms of entity structure, and I can look at it from a branch perspective. I can look at it from a service center perspective. So it's very, very flexible how you define your dimensions. And then if you look at your different versions, I can have working version, final version, goal. And similarly, let's say, for example, I just want to drag this scenario back up here. And now you're looking at your budget, right? And I can just go ahead and select this. And then you can look at all these annualized numbers year to date. If I look at this, then you can look at your actual to schedule. All of that calculations, you do that one time, set up that one time, and then month after month, you don't have to, it is much more easier and quicker. So your time can be much more productive rather than spending time on checking and collecting. Rather, you can be more productive in terms of doing business analysis and then work on your business aspect actually. Right? So that's essentially your analysis, and obviously without balance sheet. So here's an example of a balance sheet here. I could do the same thing in terms of your balances, and I could continue to go down. So here you see your loan balances, right? In the P&L, it was interest income, interest expense, loan balances. So that's, the analysis, ad hoc analysis. And then your reporting in terms of board reporting, management reporting, key performance metrics, and then your expenses in terms of department manager's input. And obviously, you have an extensive workforce planning component where you can plan for your FUTA, SUTA, employee transfer, salary, benefits, bonus, and then, review your existing employees, new hires, all of that, and everything will flow into your P&L. And so here's an example of all these set of drivers. So, each branch manager, they go in, they would be able to input the new hires and transfers and all of that. and that automatically gets aggregated. And you could use this tool even to perform intercompany elimination if you have to, if in your budget cycle, you could actually create adjustments for your intercompany process as well, and then get all that consolidated, which is what we are seeing, allowing banks to reduce the time by 60 to 80%, and then improve the accuracy from 98 to 100%, 95 to 100%, and be able to project the quarterly forecast and dynamic rolling forecast using the tool. And with that, I will open up for questions. Yeah.
Great. I think that was record time, Kanapan. Thank you so much. I want to remind everybody there is on your Zoom panel, there's a icon that says chat. If you want, type that in there. You can send it direct to Camille, or you can send it to everyone. Either one works. So I have a few questions already coming in. And we'll start with this one. How many clients are using this solution for loan and deposit level projections, and what is their asset size?
Yeah, so if you look at number of financial institutions are using, like I was mentioning, the credit union at Portland, Oregon is actually using this system at the instrument type level, and one of the bank here in Los Angeles is using it at the instrument level. So it's really how you want your budgeting process to look like, and what is the degree of accuracy you want to accomplish, and your nature of your loans. Those are the three factors you want to consider to decide between whether you want to budget at the instrument level or the instrument type level. And we have seen majority of a number of financial institutions taking the approach of instrument type, and then some institutions actually go for instrument.
Great. I hope that answered the question, but if you need clarification, let me know in the chat window. Okay, can we use the tool to set up multiple scenarios and versions? Is there any limitation in the tool on number of scenarios and versions?
That's a good question. In terms of scenarios and versions, if you remember in the Excel when I was showing, we have got multiple dimensions, and scenario is one dimension, version is another dimension. You can have unlimited number of scenarios, and for each scenario you can define unlimited number of versions. And obviously your actual is going to be one scenario which will collect the actuals from all your core banking platform as well as third-party systems. And in version, you could have your adjustment, and the feed will roll up to final. So you can look at your actual final after adjustment. You can look at your budget final after it is approved. You can look at your forecast final after you're approved. So you can put actual budget forecast side by side and do comparison, and then the reports and all that. And so there is no limit on how many scenarios and versions you can have.
Okay, great. And then I'm going to go back to the original question about the clients using this solution for loan and deposit and their asset size. So I don't know if I should address the customer directly, but it was there was that one that was 5.4 billion in total assets, and so we can address that offline further. But thank you for Ariba for pointing that out. Next question is: this is useful information and help me to understand PBCS. Question: is all those analysis reports were defaulted from PBCS or built by the Infovity team? Would be helpful if they could touch base integrations available between PBCS and other systems. So what I get is, do you understand that?
Yeah, I think I get that. So basically, There are, in terms of the other systems, it's basically you want to look at it from a downstream, upstream kind of systems. So all your core banking platform is an upstream feeding information to this downstream PBCS, and you could use this, the reports that I showed that were built by Infovidi to basically generate your reporting. And what happens is, all of this GL account is going to be different. So this is where, when we configure the application during the implementation, we will get your GL chart of account and then have that roll up. So the report will then actually show the information at the category level, right? So in that case, you could use the reporting that is part of PBCS. And we've also seen customers actually, use the PBCS as a centralized repository to bring all the actuals and then budget and forecast. Now, let's say, you are using a separate reporting tool and you would like to continue using that, right? You don't want to, once again, reinvent your reporting if you have some other tool where you are doing your reporting and today your budgeting is done in Excel. So that can be replaced with the PBCS as you saw today. And then PBCS becomes an upstream for your reporting application, and PBCS can either push that to the downstream application, and you can get your reporting done from there, right? So one of the example is maybe even Tableau or any other tool that you may have. If you're using that for as a reporting, you can actually read the information in PBCS budget forecast, actuals from read the information and then get the reporting done. Why mention about Tableau? You have analytics, Oracle Analytics Cloud Service would stand on top of PBCS. So any reporting platform can stand on top of PBCS to get your reporting. If you have an enterprise reporting strategy, that will easily fit into PBCS on top of that.
Great. And if you have any follow-up questions for the person who asked that, just go ahead and address it in the chat window and we'll come back to it. The next question I have was, can we connect to third-party securities platforms to bring the monthly balances?
Yeah, a lot of times, I have also seen this, securities are often maintained in a third-party cloud service or a third-party system. So what needs to happen is we need to get an file extract from that third-party system and have that actually pushed into the cloud automatically. So, we can actually just take the information from that feed. So the way it will work is, depending on what you want to plan in your securities, we will identify what data elements we need, and then we can work with, we work with the team to get the feed generated, and then we'll push that to the cloud automatically. So when you begin using the system, it is an automated process, but the way it works is you have a feed coming from that security system, and then we have a process to upload that into PBCS.
Okay. Next question. We're getting down to the last two, so if you have any others, go ahead and submit them to the chat window. What flexibility do we have in the tool to plan at the instrument type and instrument level?
Yeah, I think we addressed that question in your, in your first question itself, Kemal. But to go back, it's really your decision, your call. The system gives you. Basically, your product hierarchy is what is going to change, right? When you have your product hierarchy, you're going to have your commercial loan, and then your home loan, and then you stop it at the type level. But you want to do it at the instrument level, you go one level down, bring in all the instruments, and then the information gets rolled up, and the calculations are adjusted accordingly. But it's flexible on whether you want to do it at the type or at the instrument level.
Okay, I'll give everybody one more second in case there's some additional questions, but I will go back to, we are recording this webinar Everybody who registered for this event will receive the recording in an email. In that email as well, we'll have Kanapin and I's contact information if you want to schedule a meeting, you have more questions. I'll also put a link to Modern Business Experience and give you the overview of what Oracle is putting on and all the activities that Infovity is doing as well. We'd love to meet you out there in Vegas. Pretty excited about this event. And Kanapin will be there on site as well. I know his time is getting pretty booked up, but he still has spaces so he can do demonstrations or workshops with you. And while we highlighted banking, we also do a variety of industries and have pre-built solutions for a variety of industries. And I believe that's all I have. How about you, Kanapin? Anything else you want to highlight before we sign off?
Absolutely. Thank you for coordinating this, Kamel, and thank you everyone for taking your time to participate in this meeting. Back to you, Kamel.
Oh, one more question.
Oh, okay.
It says, I work at First Tech Credit Union, and we're currently using our ALM model, Profit Star, for loan deposit level projections, and then bring that forecast into Oracle. Sounds like there is one FI roughly $5 billion in assets, and is that using this tool directly? So, go ahead.
Yeah, we can talk more about that particular question. So, the planning budgeting tool gives you the ability to replace that ELM and perform that as well in the planning budgeting tool that you saw. That option is definitely there. But we can add more to more. We can discuss more about that if further information is required.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can address more of that offline. Okay. If there's no other questions, we'll give you 1 minute of your time back. And we appreciate everybody joining us today. And we look forward to having you at future webinars. Thanks, Kanapin.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.